Hello and welcome back to another Dr-Tutor video. Today we're going to be going over some of the techniques I used to get an A-star in A-level chemistry, and how you can use some of the same techniques to put yourself in the best position to secure the top grade. So, a little bit about me. I applied to medicine and managed to secure 2 A-stars and an A in my A-level examinations and secure my place at medical school on a deferred entry basis. However, in my January mocks, I was only around about a C in chemistry, but I still managed to improve this to an A-star by June. This video is essentially going to be going over some of the exam revision techniques I used to help myself improve that grade and how hopefully you can utilize them too. The first point is to use your specification. When I'm tutoring, I come across so many students who just haven't looked at the specification before or haven't gone through it in enough detail. Google your specification in accordance with your exam board and the subject, in this case chemistry, and then go through that specification point by point and place a tick next to each point you're really confident in, and ideally grade them on, I used a color system but you can use numbers, whatever you want, based on confidence. Then go over your unticked or low confidence points, and note them down and go through all of them systematically, using your textbook, YouTube, any resources you find useful. Again, Dr-Tutor produces a lot of YouTube videos. We have free notes. You can use those types of things as well as your textbook, which is a vital resource. Go through all your spec points. I would personally recommend in reverse order of confidence until you're confident on every point in the spec. That way you're sure that you know everything that you need to know for your exams. The next point I want to make is to use your textbook. I myself, for a large part of my revision in year 12, used online notes like Physics and Maths Tutor or Save My Exams, and tried to do everything to condense my revision as much as possible, as opposed to just reading through the textbook. Equally, when I'm tutoring, I come across so many students that say that they haven't necessarily read the textbook pages, but they've gone online and read online notes. Online notes are incredibly valuable, but I can't stress enough how important the textbook is. It's given to you for a reason. It has everything you need, and you just have to make sure you use it. Of course, there is some extra information which you don't necessarily need, but the majority of the textbook is essentially fair game to come up in questioning. If you use it with the spec, you just can't go wrong. And CGP books and online notes, like I said, are again extremely valuable, but use them with the textbook, not just in isolation. Full past papers and past paper questions are an extremely valuable resource. What I personally did was I started going over some questions with a mark scheme alongside them, just so that I could get used to how a mark scheme worked without the pressure of having to answer those questions in prose. Once I was more confident, I started to do the past papers without mark schemes, but not in time conditions. I just wanted to aim to achieve 100% in every question, giving myself as much time as I needed to do that, but without using external resources like a textbook, obviously mark schemes, etc. What I then did was I slowly introduced time conditions, but I was conscious that in an exam with the pressure, etc., I wouldn't be answering them as comfortably as I was at home. So what I tried to do was I worked out how many minutes I'd have per mark in the exam and reduced my time to answer each question to 80% of my exam time. Therefore, I was in a way replicating exam pressure. What I also did was, typically towards the end of a revision day when I was slightly more tired, I would go through a question and simply bullet point down what I believe the mark scheme would say, trying to understand and get used to a mark scheme, and predict the points that would come up. So answering, but just not in full prose, and then comparing that with the mark scheme. And then, after you're confident with those steps and past paper questions, answer full past papers in a similar way to above. I would recommend also going over a few examiners' reports. A lot of the mistakes you make, other people will too. And examiners' reports cover the common mistakes that examiners found when marking that year's set of papers. They're very useful for things like definitions, understanding what a mark scheme is looking for in terms of terminology, etc. And it will allow you to see exactly what examiners are looking for in the common question types. It'll also get you to review your own papers in a bit more detail, and you can check for whether you made some of those mistakes, and then try and correct those in future papers. Active recall and spatial repetition are two techniques I found really useful, especially used alongside past paper questions like we've discussed. I used active recall in particular for inorganic topics, as well as definitions. Spaced repetition and active recall I found really useful in areas where you have stuff to memorize, as opposed to understanding to test. I found it more beneficial to use multiple past paper questions and past papers for organic chemistry and physical chemistry, as it tests your understanding to a greater extent. It's important to note that if you're aiming for that top grade of an A star or even an A, you can't really afford to go into an exam with specification points or topics you're really weak on or praying that they don't come up. You have to have a very good understanding of each and every specification point. Therefore, using active recall and spatial repetition to make sure you have all of those key terms and inorganic reactions down is very, very useful. And obviously using those with questions to test understanding is vital. So timing when it comes to exam revision is very important. Don't wait until the last minute and try not to burn out. Don't wait until a few weeks or even a month before your exams to just start revising. It may be hard work, but it's only a few months, and then you've got your long summer, or perhaps even longer if you're taking a gap year. I'd recommend personally starting 3 to 4 months before your exams, or perhaps even just after mocks, and doing little amounts as frequently as possible as opposed to cramming just before. The importance of this is that you build your knowledge base over a longer period of time and reinforce things continually. That's the benefit of something like spatial repetition, as opposed to cramming in and burning out just prior to exams. How you sleep is also really important. So if you leave it too late, you will start losing sleep by trying to spend 10, 12 hours revising a day. And for me, I found this was a big reason I did badly in my mocks. We had the Christmas holiday to revise, and I tried to cram as much as possible into those last couple of weeks after enjoying Christmas. And what that led to was sleepless nights and eventually a bad mock performance. Get rest and space your revision. This for me is one of the most important points. Do not lie to yourself. We've all had days where we look at a couple pages in our textbook, rereading them, but barely paying any real attention to the contents of them, not really taking much of that information, and call it 2 hours of revision. That's not really effective or productive, and it's not really helping anyone. Don't go just by the hours you've spent at your desk supposedly studying. Go by how effective you were, and only you are going to know how effective a revision session was. It's far better for you to do a 2-hour session of past paper questions and then analyze those questions in detail, understanding your mistakes, than to spend 6 hours in a day supposedly reading the textbook but barely taking in any of that information. What I personally found really useful was starting my day by writing down a couple of topics which I wanted to complete by the end of the day, and then giving myself honest and achievable goals on how I would track my improvement in that topic. So an example of this would be writing down a topic, say atomic structure in the periodic table, one of the first topics, and tracking that I wanted to be achieving consistently above 80% in past paper questions, in a pack of past paper questions by the end of the week. And then do small amounts of past paper questions over the course of that week and see if you're achieving your goal. If you're not, then analyze your answers and understand whether you're missing in content or in exam technique, and then work on that specific section for a period of time, say the next day, 2 days, and then answer questions again to test your knowledge. I also want to mention that revision is not one size fits all. These are systems and techniques that have worked for me and helped me improve my grade, but that does not necessarily mean it will work for you or anyone else. If you have a system that works and you're getting the results you want, stick with it. Equally, if you try the methods I've talked about and don't necessarily see the results you wanted, change what you're doing. Don't stick to what I or anyone else on YouTube or the internet talks about because it worked for them. Only use it if it works for you. If you want a little extra help in improving your grade, you can book one-to-one tuition sessions with me through my website, Dr-Tutor. We'll cover content itself as well as past paper questions, and we'll use my handmade exam technique aid, which I made from covering nearly 10,000 marks of past paper questions to understand what mark schemes are looking for. I'll also help you with obviously the understanding of the content itself, your personal revision techniques, and make sure we go through questions together, applying the information from the exam technique aid. If you leave a comment or head to my website, www.dr-tutor.co.uk, you can book a free consultation meeting where we'll go over your needs and try and kind of tailor a tuition plan to you. Equally, if you're applying to medicine, I also offer interview preparation and UCAT preparation sessions for prospective medical students. I also want to note that there are free notes available on dr-tutor.co.uk, in addition to the exam technique aid that I've made that is now available for sale. Other than that, I hope you found the video useful. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. I'm going to be releasing, hopefully, weekly videos covering some of the topics in A-level biology and chemistry, as well as potentially some useful videos for interview preparation and UCAT preparation. And thank you for listening.